Hey guys, welcome back to my garden. If you're new here, my name is Kiera. Feel free to call me Q. And today I want to talk about gardening and mental wellness. Specifically, I want to share two different ways that gardening really helps me when I'm, having a bad day or going through a really tough time. And I wanted to share these two things because if there's a chance that it helps just one other person out there, then I would love for you to hear them. So let me start off with a little bit of context and a little bit of backstory. So on the day that I filmed this footage, I really wanted to be in the garden, and I had this kind of craving to be creative and also just continue to document the story of this garden this year and transitioning it into fall and things like that. But I was having an issue. I didn't want to talk. And sometimes I just have days like that where I don't want to talk. And so what I did was I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to record what I'm doing. And that way I can give myself to at least have the option to do a voiceover, have this as B-roll, or, if I decide not to use it, I could just delete it altogether and it's fine. And so that was really the decision that I made for myself for that day in the brain space that I was at. So as I was working through my garden and clearing out old summer plants and then starting to plant in some of our fall stuff, I was really trying to think of what to say the whole time. And honestly, I stalled on going out here for a couple days just because I was trying to think of what to talk about and nothing was really coming to mind. So the topic that I was trying to figure out what to talk about and what to say about was how I plan my fall garden. And really, I just couldn't think of anything. But as I was out there and as I was spending time in the garden and, working on it, breathing in the fresh air, starting to feel good, the message came really loud and clear to me that I needed to actually share about the experience instead and share about what I was going through and this process in my head. So I filmed this the day after we had a weekend where we went to the pumpkin patch, and we went with a few of our friends and their families, and the idea was to get all the kids together and all of that kind of stuff. Now, I love fall. It is my favorite season, and Halloween is my favorite holiday. So I had also planned this particular pumpkin patch outing to be our new baby's first big outing. And I planned this back when I was pregnant. So everybody got invited like as soon as he was born. And we knew we wanted to wait a couple months. But I was really excited about this. And it was a big deal to me to get all of our friends and our families together and, to have our baby there too. And so we ended up having a really great time, even though, me and the baby got a little overstimulated there, but it was still a really good time. But one thing I noticed even later that day, I was starting to feel really drained, and honestly, I was starting to feel a little bit depressed. And that is something that, I've dealt with for many years. Another thing about me is I'm a huge introvert. And so I have days where even if I'm doing things that are really fun and exciting and I'm looking forward to them, I get really tired of peopling. I get really tired of talking. I get overstimulated, and I have to have time where I'm not quote unquote on talking to anybody. So for me, this doesn't mean like I'm not speaking to my husband or our baby or anything like that. It just means that I'll have days after like a big event or something like that where I'm just a little bit quieter, and maybe I'm just not on my phone at all. So I definitely have been known to like leave my phone in another room, and I'm not like texting and calling people like I normally would. So I just have days where I need to just kind of turtle up. Even social situations where I have a lot of fun, it still takes a lot out of me. And now I also have dealt with social anxiety. That's something that I've dealt with since I was a little kid. I was a really shy little kid, and in social situations, sometimes I just didn't know what to do, and it caused me a lot of anxiety trying to figure out the right thing to do. So I've developed a lot of skills over the years to help me kind of manage that and sometimes really mask it. Like some people don't even know that this is something that I struggle with, but I know that I also always have to build in time to recharge no matter what I'm doing and no matter how fun it is for me. And sometimes even with my closest friends, I still need that time to kind of like gather myself. So what I found in the garden is that it is just such a place of peace and rest for me. It's an amazing place for me to have that space and to kind of like collect myself and to collect my thoughts, sometimes quiet my thoughts, right? If, they're thoughts that I'd rather not be having, or they're swirling, or, I'm going through something. The garden is a great place for me to just kind of moor myself. And so when I'm feeling down or anxious or overwhelmed, I have learned that if I can just get myself into the garden, I'll immediately feel better. Now, sometimes that takes a lot. Sometimes it seems like the hardest thing to do to just go outside into my backyard, and that's something that I struggle with. But I know that when I get there, I'll immediately feel better. And here are the two things that I have found that really work for me to help me not only convince myself to go and do it, but the activities that I do once I'm there. So the first one is I tell myself, just go out there and do one small task. Like just do one little thing, whether it's cleaning up one little small part of the garden or just working on something for 15 minutes. Set a timer. It's going to be super quick. You always have 15 minutes. And I do this a lot when I'm feeling particularly overwhelmed, whether it is with other things going on in life or the garden itself, because honestly, it's a lot of work. And on this particular day, I was beating myself up for not having my false starts in the ground, right? They've been sitting on a table outside for weeks. And I just was very overwhelmed by the process of deciding where to put them, how to put them in. I was worried about them all getting eaten right away, and I still had stuff that I needed to clear out. And I was just really spinning in my head about the whole thing. And so what I did on this day is I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go out there and I'm just going to find one empty spot. I know I've cleared one small spot, and I'm just going to put some plants in. And that's it. And past that, if I do anything else, great. If I don't and come back inside, that's great too. But that was the thing that really got me going. The other kind of tactic that I use for myself is I tell myself that I get to do nothing. And so for this, what I mean is I will tell myself, you know what, just go outside and just walk through the garden. Take 5 minutes. Don't go out there to look at the to-do list and think of all the things I have to get done or all the work there is out there that's staring at you. Just take a walk through the garden. And what I do when I take this walk is I challenge myself to find one beautiful thing. This really helps me get out of the spiral. And sometimes what I do is I'll take a picture of that thing on my phone, or I will use it as an opportunity to practice with my DSLR, which is something that I am very, very new to and don't really know how to use it. But it's one of those things where it gets me kind of out of my head and into stopping and intentionally noticing something. And what this does is if I'm focused on finding something to appreciate and finding something that I'm grateful for or finding something that I think is beautiful or funny or interesting, then all of the negative thoughts just kind of go out of my head. I put them on the back burner, or they just don't matter anymore, or a lot of times I'll just be able to breathe a little bit. And so whatever I felt was like a huge problem before, it just doesn't feel that bad anymore, and I'm able to find solutions and work through it. One thing I got from Jess at Roots and Refuge Farm is she says that every garden needs a chair. And I 100% agree with that. And I know that when I'm feeling overwhelmed by life or by the garden itself, I can just take a walk through it, or I can find a place to sit and just look at it and appreciate it and kind of recenter myself that way. And I know that when I am especially feeling overwhelmed by how hard the garden is to take care of and to manage, I know that I'm not spending enough time just appreciating it for all of its beauty. Another thing too is I know that I am not in a place where I'm giving myself credit for all of the things that I've done to make it what it is. And so going into the garden and doing nothing is such a great way for me to just reset myself emotionally, mentally and emotionally. Well, having a garden has really helped me through so many emotional challenges over the last few years, including, all of 2020 and what it was and how scary it was. And, just that was such an intense year for everybody in a lot of different ways. And that was when I really started gardening. And it was one of those unexpected benefits that I had that made me quickly realize that gardening was something that, yeah, it was nice and it started as a hobby and I enjoyed it, but it became crucial and critical for my mental well being. And so, for that reason, I will always have a garden no matter where I live. Even if it's just pots on a balcony, like I have to have it now because I know I get so much out of it. Because I know now, after gardening for, this is my technically fourth year gardening. Really, it's kind of my third year that I count. But one thing I've learned is the results of gardening is how I love other people. I love sharing the harvest. I love giving it away. I love gifting people with great food and, helping my husband have really good ingredients to cook with because he is the cook in our house. And I love just being a part of that, for creating that for our family and creating it for people who come and visit us. But the process of gardening itself is how I am learning to love myself. And there's so many life lessons that I get by being in the garden. And so if gardening or growing food has helped you in some way in your emotional wellness, your well-being, mental health, any of that kind of stuff, whether it's just turning around a bad day or really seeing you through some pretty tough times, I would love for you to share what you do in the garden or how you interact with your garden when you need it the most, when you really need the time to love on yourself and to take care of yourself. Because I think that anytime any of us see that, it could help someone else. And I love the idea that someone else might read the comment section and get a bunch of ways on small or big things that they could do to get out of a funk. Everyone that I have encountered so far has been just so supportive and lovely. And I love that people can come together online in spaces like this and create that. So let's create more of that and let's do it on purpose. Thank you so much for joining me in my garden today and through this talk on mental wellness and, how it feels to be human sometimes. I really appreciate you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.